Kayla, Conrad from the Caveman and Musers, and today we're talking about our sew and flip method that goes along with a lot of our quilt as you go patterns. My sister is laughing at me. This is not nice. So the first step with the sew and flip method, oh man, I'm bad at this. With the sew and flip method is that you need to cut your batting to the size of the finished item that you're making. For us, right now, that is a blanket. So we have the batting cut, check this out, to the full size of the blanket. If you're doing just a block in a quilt as you go pattern, you're just going to cut the batting to the size of the block. So whatever you want your finished item to be, the size of your finished item to be, you cut your batting to that size. Good to go? Good to go. Okay, we also have taken our finished size and we had 6 prints that we wanted to use. So we just, the cameraman is getting tired.
My arm is tired.
We just basically took the size of our blanket and divided it evenly by the number of prints we wanted to use. And so we have those pre-cut here. So adorable. And we're using a minky fabric, so it's super soft and plush. Just gonna put these back here for right now. That's for right now. We're just dealing with this top one. So you're gonna have your batting laid out on a nice flat surface and make sure that this starting point is a really straight line. So we laid it out and straightened it up before you got here. And then we're gonna take the first piece of fabric, the one that we want at the top. And since we're using a soft fabric, it has a nap. So you test for nap by rubbing the fabric. This way is the wrong way, this way is the right way. See, wrong way. It looks like that, not so cute. Right way. So I want the nap going down on my blanket. And if you're not using something with a nap, but you are using a print, just make sure that the print is going the direction you want. So now we're gonna line up the edges so we get a nice straight edge all lined up, nice and pretty all along the top. No comments from the peanut gallery this time, I see.
You're so slow.
You're slow. Alright. So once you have that, you can do one more check just to be sure your nap is the right way. We're good to go. Good to go. So then you're going to take your second piece of fabric. For us, it's these cute blue Swiss dots. And you want to make sure that the nap is going the same direction. You don't have to, I suppose, if you wanted a funky blanket. But I want my nap going the same direction. So you just check, same way again.
You look confused. You shouldn't be confused.
This one is not, it's not a very thick pile. Gotta go this way. Alright. And so to make sure that you have them the same, going the same direction, if you lay the second piece, or the next piece, as you go down the blanket, on where it's supposed to be, where you want it to end up, you can just check the nap, make sure, oh yeah, look at that, it's nice and soft. And then, so that you don't mess up what you just did and figured out, the easiest way to do it is to just flip it, grab it from the other end, and flip it up, so that now you have right sides together. And you want to line up this edge now, the edge that's closest to me, with the edge of your first print. So you want to make sure that those are nice and straight and lined up. I should stop sniffing. And this part actually can be a little bit tricky if you have the naps going the same way, because they kind of want to fight each other right now when you're lining it up. Alright, so then the next step is you don't want this to move, right? And typically we really love Wonder Clips Wonder clips are not going to work in this situation. You need pins, which I don't have. So I'm going to go, okay, we're back and we have pins this time. You want to make sure that you don't wiggle things too much. So you just kind of want to slide your pin right in, right back out. Nice and soft and simple. And since we're using kind of a slippery fabric and we're doing a long stretch, you don't want your pins very far apart.
About every inch or so.
Yeah. So this is going to get super boring. So through the magic of television, this will be done when we get back. Okay. And just like magic, it's pinned. So next step is to take it over to your trusty sewing machine.
Oh, look at that shark.
Look at that shark. All right.
I made it.
And because we're using cuddle fabrics, I'm going to use a slightly larger stitch, but...
You mean longer.
Longer. That's what I meant. Slightly longer stitch so that, gotta do this first. Okay, I don't remember where we left off. So for this minky fabric, we like to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance and a longer stitch length.
You already said that.
I'm reiterating. I can cut out the other one, whichever one sounds dumber.
I'm not cutting out either. Continue.
Super helpful. So, yeah, we're just gonna sew away. You're gonna sew through all 3 layers. So the second piece of fabric you added, the first piece, and the batting. And you're just gonna mess up. Go to town. Don't sew your fingers.
So you're sewing with the foot along the edge of the cuddle.
Good call. Always make sure you have chocolate handy too.
And take the pins out. Oh, stab.
It's always good when you throw them in your lap. Super helpful to the process. Try to keep your batting flat behind your seam. It's going to be a little bit awkward because right now we're shoving the entire rest of the blanket through, but just try and keep it as flat as you can.
And we shall
turn more magic. All right, thanks to the magic of video, television. We're not on television, video. We're back and we're done. Look at that, all sewn. So our 1/2 inch seam is from this edge. So when you put it under your presser foot, just make sure that this is where you're counting your 1/2 inch from. It's a little bit odd, just because you can't actually see your 1/2 inch marker out here when you're sewing. For me, it works out nicely that it's just the edge of my presser foot when I move my needle all the way over. You can also see down here at the end, it didn't stay perfectly lined up. That's not the end of the world. Don't worry about it. Perfection is overrated. So the next step is magic. You did the sew. Now guess what you do next? You flip. Okay. So you flip this back down and voila. Your next piece is connected. It's not going anywhere. Your naps are lined up because you checked beforehand. Good job for you. And we're gonna add the next piece. Same way.
You should put some pins in first.
Pins in first?
In the blue one so that it doesn't move. Just a few.
I never do that. Are you crazy? Then they'll stab you when you're sewing. Alright.
Well, fine.
The videographer says, so we're gonna add some pins so it doesn't move on us. I guess that's not a terrible idea. So, if you don't want to use pins and get stabbed while sewing, you can always use one of those temporary adhesive sprays. They make a bit of a mess, but they have their good points too, like not getting stabbed. Something I didn't mention before was that the batting that we use warm and natural. We like it particularly and especially when we're using minkies or cuddle fabrics, just because the fabric itself is already so heavy and already very warm fabrics just by themselves. But if you use a light batting, it doesn't weigh it down much more and it doesn't add to the overall heat factor, which is kind of nice. Unless you really like to sleep under a sauna, which also is great if that's what you want. So we're gonna test for nap again, or print if you're using cottons. So you can also do this with cottons. You can do it with puffier batting if you want. If you're using cottons and you want it to look puffy. If you're using a polyester batting, make sure you don't iron on it. You will melt it. All right, so we have matching naps and we flip. Now, if your pieces are the same size, so say you cut this strip, all your strips are cut to the same, we'll call this the height, you're gonna notice that it won't line up here anymore, right? Because you have a 1/2 inch seam back here. So don't worry about this end because it's not gonna match. You worry about this end and make sure that these two are lined up all the way across. And pin it again. Through the magic of film, be done in 2 seconds. Shake of a lamb's tail. We're back and we're pinned. So now, any guesses what we do next?
We shall sew.
I see the kids coming.
I want to start like that.
We're back and the kids are too. So when you hear small voices, higher pitched than my own, it's the children and we'll deal with it. So you sew a nice long seam again, and minimum amount of blood loss, you know, from the pins, but they're back here. So you take those out, and if you want to do what our videographer suggests, move those right on down to the next piece. Oh no, the sniffles are back. Alright. At least my niece thinks I'm funny. Hey. And then we'll grab the next print. I'm gonna move this up a little bit. Which is adorable orange Swiss dots. This time, the fabrics we're using are from Easy Fabrics. In case you were wondering. Super cute print, little sharks. And it's pretty sure, Kara can correct me if I'm wrong, but it would appear these are all from a coordinating line. So, you are correct. Check for nap again. I mean Swiss, okay. That Swiss dot was a little easier. We have it right. So, any guesses what we're gonna do next? I'm sure you're all waiting with bated breath. Flip it up. Even Gabby knows, and she wasn't here for the other videos. Flip it up. Line up the edges. We're gonna pin and sew and flip and just continue the process till we get to our last row. But that's not very exciting, so we'll see you when it's done. And we're back. We just, why am I doing weird things with my hands? We just finished the last seam for the last strip of fabric. So, you know, follow the trail of events. I don't know. Just do what you've been doing. Flip it over, and because your batting is cut to the size that it should be at the finished, at the end of your project. Oh my goodness, this is terrible. They should match up, and magically they do. Look at that, we did our math right. It happens occasionally. Oh my goodness, I sound like a, okay. So at this point, what you want to do is square up your quilt. So for the two ends, probably an easy way to do it, the way that I would do it, is to take your seam line and line it up on one of the lines on your mat, and then just trim the end along a line to make sure that it's nice and straight. Do that for both ends. If you're doing something that's small and will fit the whole thing on the mat at once, fantastic. Just put it there and cut all four sides at once. If you're doing something like this, it's possibly easier, I don't know, we're not experts in this, this is what we would do, to fold it in half. And since all of our strips are theoretically the same size, match up the seams and then square it up while it's folded in half. If you notice that it's significantly off, just try and take the same amount from each side. Don't cut it all off of one side. Especially if you're doing something with this pattern, with this style, it wouldn't necessarily matter a ton, but you don't want to square up one side and then not be able to square up the other without significantly shrinking your blanket. And if it's something that has a significant, or a particular pattern on it, you don't want to offset your pattern too much. For a design. Now that once you square up your blanket, your quilt top, then you're going to, the next step would be to use the wonderful Wonder Clips and go around the edge to hold all the edge pieces down. And then you're just going to sew a nice basting stitch around the edges at about a quarter inch out, so that it's not going to shift around on the edges on you. And then you have a couple of options. You can quilt it with just the top and the batting and attach your backing later and have it loose. And if you don't like your backing loose and you do that method, you can always stitch in the ditch. Or you can attach your backing and quilt through all the pieces at once, or you can choose not to do any additional quilting at all, because technically it is hooked to the batting. It's not going to go anywhere. With something bigger like this, often we recommend you do, just because number one, it adds a little bit more visual interest, and number two, it does keep it laying a little bit nicer. One of the things that we like to do, because we're cheap, is to quilt them ourselves. And I personally am not very skilled with a free motion foot at all. So what I do, and what my sister does a lot of times, is we use painter's tape to make out, or to lay out a pattern with painter's tape, and then we just follow the edge of our painter's tape and do straight line quilting using painter's tape, which we have another tutorial for coming, maybe. We'll see, I don't know. It's in a pattern that we did, the basic baby blanket pattern, which I believe is a free pattern on our website. If you want to just go out and download that, it'll tell you about our...
That's a yes, it is.
Oh, it's a yes. That we have that out there that you can check out our painter's tape method. So.
And quilted.
And your quilt is done? What?
That's the end of our tutorial.
Oh, we're done. You're done. If you followed along with us and had the magic of film, you're done. Thanks for checking us out, and hope you had a good laugh and learned something along the way.